Hey, Disturbing listeners, a lot of you have been asking me to react to the new Frenemies episode, so let's get to it.
Who's these people that give...
Psycho.
Psycho?
I do. Did you know schizophrenia is a psycho disorder? There's like borderline's a personality disorder, and schizophrenia is like a psychotic disorder, right? I think it's psychotic.
So, I'm with you there.
I think it's a psychotic disorder. So I have both, which is crazy.
So so Trisha the psycho.
Okay, so according to her, she is saying that she suffers from borderline personality disorder and schizophrenia. Well, what are we talking about when we're talking about borderline? I don't know about her clinicians and the way she's using it, but typically the way we use borderline is when someone goes through significant mistreatment when they're growing up, and the caregivers are traumatizing the child, usually. And the child grows up in 0 to 5 with trauma relating to relationships. So we can have trauma, say, if you go to war and you are traumatized by loud noises or bullets or a sight of blood, this kind of thing. That makes sense to us, right? Well, what if the source of the trauma is your parent? Well, in that situation, it is very distressful for us throughout our entire life because we, of course, want to connect with other people, but as we get close to people, we are triggered because when we were young, when we got close to people, we got hurt. That's an oversimplification, but that is the crux of the matter. And so the behaviors that we'll see in people is that they'll be very, very desperate for closeness and very, very desperate for relationships and stability and loyalty and trust and attachment security. But as they interact with other people, they're triggered very frequently by either minor rejections or even just things that they just perceive that aren't really happening. And so because, similar to someone coming back from war, they're driving down the street in Seattle and there's no war going on, but they hear a loud noise or they see a helicopter and it triggers their trauma. They consciously understand that they are not at war and that helicopter is just a traffic helicopter for a local radio station, but their body doesn't know that, of course, and their body completely has a distressed, traumatic reaction. Similar with borderline, when you have those early abuse or abandonment or all the above, then you get close to someone and you might intellectually know, I'm pretty sure I can trust this person, but my body does not feel like I can trust this person. And we don't have any control over those kinds of reactivities. We just, high distress. And then we get very hurt and we interpret that as like, is this person abandoning me? Is this person really hurting me right now? And then you feel very hurt and then you get real angry at the person. You might push people away. Listen to all my deep dives on borderline personality disorder. It's pretty complicated. The internet actually doesn't have a lot of good information on it. There's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of stigmatization. I specialize in treating people with borderline. So that's what she's talking about. I don't know. She's saying borderline, but I don't know if she's referring to that. Then she also said schizophrenia. So schizophrenia has a lot of different symptoms, but in a nutshell, it often involves periods of time where people have episodes, usually episodic episodes, where they will hear voices or they will have delusions. Usually they're persecutory, like the FBI is reading my thoughts, or I'm actually the devil, or that person across the street is out to get me, or things like that. And there are other symptoms to schizophrenia as well. But we could, if she even comes close to suffering from those symptoms, borderline and or schizophrenia, then she must be suffering quite a bit.
With what? I always contribute. You never have, first of all, when you were doing all the podcasts, it was like Keemstar, Jake Paul, and everyone's like, we're so sick of hearing about this because it's everything. Like, I saw on this, you had stuff from last H3. You just recycle H3 content on Frenemies. You're like, oh, we're going to do Trisha through the history meme or whatever. And you already did that on the last episode, and I saw it on you.
Okay, so I'm not exactly sure what they're fighting about. I think what they're fighting about is Trisha wanted to talk about something for a long period of time. Ethan wanted to keep it shorter and wanted to change the subject. And Trisha was saying she didn't like the next segment or something, and Ethan was saying this is a good segment. So they're having that's the basis, I think, of the argument that's starting right now. And as a podcaster myself who has had co-hosts with me, I have been there before. You're recording. You got to keep things moving. You don't want to have things be too long. You don't want to have things be too short. You want to talk about something that you think the listeners are going to want to listen to. You're going to want to talk about things that you want to talk about. So there's all these different things that you have to negotiate, and it seems like the two of them have equal power, which is fine. But I'll tell you, for my podcast, when I have co-hosts with me, I'm usually the one who has the agenda. So, and I think you usually need that when you have a podcast. You need someone that's sort of in charge of keeping things moving forward. But anyway, so the two of them, I think, are fighting about that. But instead of saying something like, hey, can we change the subject, please? They're just attacking each other and saying your segments aren't good. And they're bringing up all these things from the past. So it seems like they've had resentment about this building up. Let's watch.
We put together this Gabby Hanna segment.
I mean, I literally, again, could have done that from my head. I always chime in with my topics. Like I always do, because like I try and steer it.
What did you bring on the Logan Paul fight?
I brought it up, first of all, because it's something trending.
You're like, I don't even know what to say about it. I don't even know why people watch.
So now they're just trying to attack each other. I don't know who's right and who's wrong. I think both of them are probably at least a little bit wrong. And they're just trying to make their point of like, hey, you don't contribute. There seemed to be a theme this whole, maybe they always talk about this topic of who brings more to the table. Because from what I understand, both of them are media figures independent of this podcast or this show, Frenemies. And so they both bring their talent and their viewership to this show. And they both have to put in effort, but there's been a theme of conflict bubbling up in this episode where one is saying, you don't contribute enough, or you don't come up with ideas, or and talk about how they split the money. There's very frank and honest discussions about how they split the money up and how all those kinds of things. So it would seem that the two of them would benefit from having a conversation about like, hey, this hurts my feelings when you don't contribute. I feel like you're contributing 30%, which is great. Thank you. But I feel like I'm contributing 70%, and it'd be nice if you could take on some of these things. Instead of having that kind of conversation, they're just attacking each other. I think that's what's happening.
I pick the costumes. I never do the vlogs. I give so many ideas. I say dancing for the vlogs. I give all these ideas, and you don't. It's just
what's wrong with that advice
for you? I don't think it's a good segment.
The people want to hear from us.
Okay.
So I think the other context here, if you didn't see this episode, is Ethan had this idea prior to this episode of an advice segment where people ask for advice and they give advice. It's a real common podcasting or YouTube segment. You can answer questions. People usually like to listen to that kind of content. Ethan is coming up with that. He wants to do it. And Trisha doesn't seem very interested in that. So that's okay. They can have that difference. And how do they take care of each other while asserting themselves during the conversation? That's the key. So I don't know. It seems like they're maybe returning to some equilibrium here. Let's watch.
I'm just telling you my opinion. And all the vlogs we've done, I've suggested other vlogs, and like that never does.
Well, if you don't like it, then we shouldn't do it.
Okay.
Since it's a show about me and you.
No, but you're saying I do all the work, but I'm telling you I don't like all the stuff you do. I'm just kind of go with it because I'm like, okay, I guess this is what you want to do, but I have to start saying no because some things are just not good ideas.
So instead of saying, I don't want to do that, which I'm suspecting is what's happening for Trisha, she just doesn't want to do this segment. Instead of saying, well, I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but I don't feel like doing it right now. I don't know why. I'd rather do something else. That would be not very debatable, right? No one can know if Trisha wants to do it or not, and that's fine. But when you come from a place of trauma or sexism, sometimes you feel like you have to bolster your case by saying, no, that idea is bad. Instead of saying, I don't know if the idea is bad or not, I don't want to do it. You try to bolster your argument by saying, your idea is wrong. Your idea is bad, which I think is hurting Ethan's feelings, which is causing him to withdraw, causing him to get angry and hostile. That's my perception. I'm just taking a guess.
I just don't like when we spend whatever.
Go ahead, say it. There's a good creep.
But you're asking we do all the work. It's like we spent one Frenemies rehashing all the stuff you said about Keemstar and H3 Live, which was 2 days prior.
Okay, it happened one time.
No, it's happened before where you just like bring up stuff that you've already mentioned, like, and it's fine. But
Why are you attacking me?
you asked me, you said tell me, and I'm telling you, like.
Okay, so we're getting a little bit closer to, I think, Ethan's core feelings, which is hurt. He's saying, why are you attacking me? It's a deeper, more functional thing, more healthy thing to say, in that it would actually provoke the response you're looking for in people more likely, is to say something, Trisha, what you're saying right now just hurts my feelings. I came up with this idea. I was really excited about it. And now instead of saying you just don't want to do it, you're saying the idea is bad, which kind of makes me feel like you think my idea is bad or you think my judgment is bad, and that hurts my feelings. And then Trisha could say something like, oh, no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I'm just saying I just don't like the idea. Maybe that would help, but let's watch.
The title was like pregnancy announcement, which is I'm happy to talk about the pregnancy.
We talked a lot about the pregnancy here.
But it wasn't the pregnancy announcement H3 Live was. It's your guys' thing, which I'm happy to talk about. I'm happy for you guys. But to say like, oh, we don't recycle things, it's like, you do, and it's fine. But I don't make it the same title because it's not an announcement. We're talking about your pregnancy.
I wouldn't say recycling.
So I wonder, based on the few videos I've seen of these two in the past, what triggered her? Because she seems to be really rigidly on this topic of almost kind of defending herself against him and trying to point out, look, you have monotonous topics, because they seem to get off that topic, but then she brings that back up of, look, you've had, on your show and on this show, you bring up a lot of monotonous topics over and over and over again, essentially saying you are a bad content producer, you're a bad podcaster, you have bad judgment, this kind of thing. And I wonder why she is why she's on that train track. Is it that he said something that hurt her? I don't know enough about their relationship to know what the subtleties are.
It's not an announcement. You weren't announcing it.
Okay, so Hila's pregnant, and I'm talking about it with Trisha. Would you prefer that?
Anything to be more creative. It's like the fact that you just talk about what you talked about the week prior is like, and I've seen other people call it out. It's not just me. Like, I mean, people have called it out before. Like the whole Keemstars, I didn't know it was like the 30 minutes was exactly the 30 minutes you did on H3 Live.
Yeah, I agree. That part was
That's crazy.
Sometimes I forget what I've talked about, honestly.
But you're saying you have all this crew that does all this work for you and nobody could remember.
Okay, so she is criticizing his content production style, and he is agreeing with her. He's saying, yeah, I agree. I forget what I talk about sometimes. And from what I'm gathering, they're talking about doing podcasts or YouTube videos about his partner's pregnancy. If that's true, then yeah, you're going to talk about it a lot, and you're going to be telling a lot of people the things, and you're probably not going to know what you said in previous podcasts, especially with what I believe Ethan's style to be, which is extremely casual. I don't think he has agendas. I think he just talks off the cuff. I'm just going to take a guess. So I'm wondering what's going on for Trisha in this moment. Does she feel like she's being sidelined somehow? Does she feel, is it an ongoing sense of being sidelined? Is it some insecurity about the podcast in and of itself? Is she getting a lot of criticism from viewers that the content is boring, and so she feels bad about herself, so she's attacking Ethan? I don't know. I feel like there's got to be something underneath there that is motivating what's happening right now.
Remember that you talked about that 2 days prior?
I agree. Somebody should have said something. I was like, guys, why don't you tell me when I'm talking about the same shit over and over? Because I tell to them, I go, yo, make sure to include this. And they go, oh, okay. But I go, oh, shit, I talked about the same thing. But I feel like you're so angry about this.
I'm literally not, but it's
Yes,
so
you
funny.
are.
I'm not. I'm angry when you say something.
You need to admit when you're angry.
Okay, so there's a more healthy way to say this. From Ethan's point of view, I think he's hurt. I think he feels like he's being treated unfairly, and that's why he's hurt. I think he might be a little bit concerned about what's going on with her right now. So he's saying, instead of saying something like, hey, I'm getting a lot of emotion from you right now, and I just want to know what it's about because I care about you. Is there more to this story? Because I feel like your anger is like a 5 when I think it should be like a 3. Is there more here? Because I care. I want to know. Is there more resentment here? Is there some concern that you want to talk about? I think that's a more healthy version of what he's saying. Or what he is he's hurt, and he feels treated unfairly, attacked and criticized. And instead of recognizing that hurt, he's attacking back and basically saying, you're hysterical. There's something wrong with you. You have too many emotions. I think there's at least a theme of that in there. So let's continue watching.
Ethan, I promise you, this is really is gaslighting. I go to a lot of therapy right now, and this really is. When I say I'm not angry, I'm not. I'm like just trying to tell you that you're like, oh, we do everything for the show, and I'm like saying it's not always good. I'm not angry. If I was angry, I would like leave or something, but I'm not. But you telling me I'm angry.
So it's not a good idea to tell people what they feel, even if you're probably right. It's just not a polite thing to do. People don't like to be told. It's like when you're worked up and someone says, calm down. It doesn't usually help. Now, I want to talk about this word gaslight. You've heard me talk about this before. We've been using this term in the clinical world for decades. And the definition is when someone goes on a campaign, a knowing, volitional campaign, to undermine someone's ability to trust their own judgment of things. The classic example comes from the movie and the play Gaslight from the 30s and 40s in the United States, in which an individual is trying to essentially drive his partner or his wife crazy by moving furniture around and claiming, and then she would walk in, she would say, oh, the couch is in this other place. And he'd say, I don't know what you're talking about. So it was a very purposeful campaign of trying to screw with someone's mind and not recognize reality so that the individual will actually start to wonder, wait, am I crazy? Am I going mad? Am I losing my mind? Do I have the ability to know right from wrong? Is my memory completely broken right now? Do I have a tumor or something wrong with me? That's what gaslighting is. And what this is, I don't think Ethan is doing that. What is Ethan doing? Well, I think he is bothering her. We could say that. We could say that he is trying to make a point. He's criticizing her. Because so here's the accusation. Ethan was saying, you're angry. And she's like, I'm not angry. And he's like, I think you're angry. And then she says, you're gaslighting me. Okay. So if we hooked up Ethan to a lie detector test that doesn't really exist, and we asked him, do you think that she's angry? I'm going to take a guess and say that Ethan would say, yes, I do believe she's angry, and I believe she's in denial of that. So to truly gaslight someone, you have to, on purpose, be trying to trick someone over time so that they will question their judgment. Hearing something that you don't like, hearing something like, okay, he's telling me I'm angry, but I'm not angry. And he's totally convinced that I'm angry, but I'm not angry. That's not gaslighting in the clinical literature. Now, in the broad internet, social, cultural world, if we all want to start using the word gaslighting in this context, that's fine. Language changes over time. But I will tell you that it will diminish and dilute actual incidences of gaslighting. We use the term in abusive relationships because there are relationships where, and I don't know, maybe Ethan is like this. I don't see the evidence of that in this video, but maybe it exists, where you have a relationship, often a marriage, where the abusive individual is actually on a campaign to drive the other person to a place where they actually cannot question, where they actually can't trust their own judgment. For example, this might be a little triggering, so you might want to watch this with care, maybe not watch, is you have an abusive spouse. The abusive person is really trying to diminish their partner's power and raise their power. They're really trying to make the other person feel powerless so this person can have control. It's usually attachment related. I won't go into that, but this person is actually really, really insecure. The power high control person is desperately insecure about not, they really need to be in full control. So they will tell the other person things like, you don't know what you're talking about. Or the low control person, the abused person, the victim, will say something like, well, yesterday you said this, and the abuser will remember, yeah, I did say that, but I can't admit that, and I want to actually undermine my spouse's ability to trust their own memory, because that will serve my power purposes. So I'm going to say, I didn't say that. In fact, I have a recording. They might doctor a recording and say look, this recording says I didn't say that. You're crazy. There's something wrong with your brain. That happens. Gaslighting happens. I don't know if this is gaslighting, but if we want to change the word, fine, I'll go along with it. But we need to come up with another word that can honor what is actually happening in long-term relationships where that kind of high control abuse is happening, because that deserves its own term.
You're not upset or angry? Okay. All right.
But it is like frustrating when you think you do all this work and like think, oh, we're doing all this great stuff. And it's like, it's not that great sometimes. A lot of it is, and I like appreciate all the work you do and stuff like that, but it's also like not that great.
Okay. So I was going to say, oh, good. You know, if we're going to try to use this reaction as a jumping off point to learn about how to communicate more effectively, she just said something really great. She's like, I really appreciate everything you do. So, you know, I have some criticisms, but I also really appreciate what you do. So she said that, but then she said essentially something that erased the nice thing.
I don't get input on like people we hire, like all this stuff like that. I don't get
people we hire. Why would I ask you about people I hire?
Because it's Frenemies and you take the budget for paying the crew. That's what you told me. You take highlights, you take 5% to pay the crew.
No,
so why don't I get any input on the crew or what we do?
These are employees of our
So why are you taking
company.
highlights and 5% of Frenemies? You told me that it was to pay them.
Okay, so again, I have no idea, but it sounds like for Trisha, she has a complaint about how the money is being spent, about the power, about maybe that's what this whole thing is about, the seeming upsettedness and resentment that Trisha is exhibiting, that she has been for a long time upset that Ethan has all the power, that he has the employees, that he makes all the decisions. And when he decided to have this segment of answering people's questions, it was just the last straw on the camel's back, and she just couldn't take it anymore. And she's thinking, I don't want to do that, and he's just going to bulldoze through me, and everyone's going to be on his side because he, you know, has got everyone on his side. He hired all the people when this should be our podcast. We should be doing things together. I should have 50% of the say in these kinds of things. And it's not just this issue, it's thousands of issues that I've been suffering from over time. I'm just going to take a guess and say that's what's happening, which would be fine to communicate that. I wonder if she can clarify that, if that is the case.
But again, you were about to move us all to downtown LA, and I was just like, but the production cost should be included.
Yeah.
Like, you were going to share the cameras because Dan said, oh, we have to get new computers and new cameras. Well, I'm like, Frenemies
and I
has the budget.
obliged you. I said, okay, fine.
But you fought me on it.
Because we bought a studio downtown. That was always the plan, by the way, that we were going to move downtown. And then all of a sudden, I was like, yo, and I was like, yo, we're moving. I told you ahead of time, but it's fine because
you didn't tell me downtown
we're still
LA.
at my
Okay, so I don't know these individuals, but if we're going to use this reaction video as a jumping off point to talk about things that I know about, is that sexism exists in our society. We all understand that. And sometimes at workplaces, women will be discounted, they won't be heard, they will be marginalized and oppressed and not given a voice. And sometimes women will have an internalized sexism that will cause them not to speak up as much. But particularly if they do manage to speak up against their programming from society, a lot of times they will be shut down. So I don't know if that's what's happening right now, if that's a factor in this situation. And one of the tools of the patriarchy is to call women hysterical. So let me give it a general example that happens all the time. You ignore women, you marginalize them, you don't listen to them, you talk over them, you interrupt them, you don't include them, and they get upset. They get hurt, they get angry, and they start to speak up. And then the patriarchy will say, you're hysterical, you're emotional, are you on your period? There must be something wrong with you, put you down. Oh, honey, maybe you should go to a psychiatrist. Are you on your meds? These kinds of things. And that you could actually call a gaslighting of society on women. It's not volitional, but it is an overall effort that results in groups of people believing that they can't trust their own judgment about things. They feel like they're being mistreated. They feel like something's wrong. They speak up, and everyone pushes them back down and says, there's something wrong with the way you look at the world. So I don't know if that's what's happening right now. Let me know in the comments.
Sponsors?
I mean, I had all of Adam
50%.
and Eve for the first 20 shows. So I mean, I appreciate what you do, but don't act like I don't bring it. I brought.
Yeah, you
all
brought
of that.
Adam and Eve, and so that was one sponsor we worked with.
That's
which
all
was
we had for
awesome.
the first
And now we have
sponsorship.
tons of sponsors every episode because it takes time, obviously, to get the show up and pitching, and you get 50% of all of that. I feel like the deal you get is super fair. And I feel like you're gaslighting me, to be honest, saying that you're not like frustrated about
But
that.
I'm not.
Because it really is a source of like.
So I guess people are just using gaslighting for lying. We have a wonderful word for deception. We just call it lying or deception or tricking. So it's fine, though. You know, I'm an old person. I've been using the word gaslighting in the abuse literature. I've been reading about it for a long time. So just to hear lay people using it in this way, it's fine. You know, the word literally has changed over time. I'll adjust. But it is weird to my ears when he says, I feel like you're gaslighting me. So let's analyze what he's talking about here. I think what he's talking about is he's saying, you're frustrated, you're angry, you're resentful, and you're claiming that you're not. Because it seems to me like you're angry. Seems like you have a lot of energy around this. And so I feel like you are lying to me, or you're trying to trick me, or you're deceiving me, or you're in denial or something. And then we say, you're gaslighting me. I think we should just use lie or deceive or those kinds of words. Because the word gaslighting, I don't know if people are using it in this precise manner. Again, particularly because we've been using it for a long time in the abuse literature in a much more comprehensive, you know, we're using it for a much more comprehensive thing that's real. And I don't know, like on one hand, I'm like, well, language changes. On the other hand, people are saying on Twitter and other places like, oh my God, I'm so OCD. And just referring to like they like their desk to be tidy. Oh my God, I'm so OCD. No, you're not. If that's the extent to your compulsion, you are not so OCD. You have a minor compulsion about making sure everything is tidy on your desk. I wouldn't even say compulsion. You're just tidy. You like things to be clean. You like things to be orderly. That's fine. OCD, if you talk with people who actually suffer from obsessive compulsive disorder, they will look at you and say, I can't believe that you are diminishing my suffering. That you would claim that you just being tidy is the same as what my disorder is. To suffer from OCD is no joke. So when people say, oh my God, I'm so OCD, should I just say, well, language changes, or should I defend those who are suffering from OCD? When people are saying, you're gaslighting me, should I say, well, language is changing, or should I defend those actually suffering from gaslighting relationships?
Frustrated or upset. So I don't know what else that could be. How am I gaslighting you by telling you I'm not feeling this way? How is that gaslighting you? I'm not feeling this way.
Okay.
I wouldn't show up. I wouldn't come here. I would,
You listen. You can be upset and not
But I'm not.
because you can be upset and then also not be like, I'm not showing up. Fuck you.
I'm
Like
not
there's
upset.
levels.
It is a little weird that she's not admitting that she's upset. She's either upset or she's upset about being said she's upset. She's upset. She's upset. Maybe her definition of upset is different. It's fine. She certainly it doesn't seem like she just came up with this issue right now. It seems like this is an ongoing thing for her that bothers her. Maybe if Ethan used a word like, well, it seems like you're bothered by something. Can you get on board with that word? You know, because I'd like to have some kind of agreement about what's happening right here. You seem to be bothered with our financial agreement, or you don't like our financial agreement. You know, as a therapist, I've learned, I've had in my earlier career, and I don't have these kinds of clients anymore, but in my earlier career, I would have a lot of resistant clients. And so I would have to get very good at wording things differently. I'll tell you a story that was very frequent is I would have like a 16-year-old boy, and he would be talking about how he was being bullied at school or something, and people were putting him down or people were shoving him or something. And I would say, wow, that must really hurt your feelings to be treated like that. And he would say, no, I'm not hurt. I'm not hurt. And I'd be like, well, they're calling you names and they're pushing you down. That must hurt to be treated like that. Oh, no, I'm not hurt. I'm not hurt. And I'd think, how could you not be hurt by, you're being bullied? I don't want to gaslight, my clients, but are you, it's got to hurt a little bit, right? It's got to sting to be humiliated that way, to literally be pushed down. So they would have a really hard time admitting that. Why? Because, generally younger people are very insecure about their emotions because we don't help them with their emotions primarily. And we also will shame them for having their emotions. So it's no mystery as to why they have this shame. But I would get good at wording things. Okay, well, you're not hurt, but were you upset about it? Were you frustrated with it? People would have a lot easier time saying, yeah, I was frustrated. But according to my model and a lot of other therapists will follow is that the frustration and the anger actually is a secondary emotion to the hurt and the fear. Anyway, let's watch again.
If I was upset, I wouldn't show up.
I'm just explaining. Because you can be upset and still show up.
But I'm not upset, and that's what gaslighting is. Because you're saying I'm gaslighting you by saying
you're not upset. You're perfectly.
Oh, wow.
You're in a perfect condition right now.
Okay. Wow.
So I wonder what for her is making it hard for her to just say, yeah, I'm upset. There seems to be some kind of threat there. What's the threat? Let me think about this. Total speculation, as I often will say. But I wonder if for Trisha, when she was accused of having a feeling or being angry or being upset, that something very bad would happen after. So imagine she's 4 years old and she has an emotion. She's being treated poorly and she gets angry and starts expressing her anger, and then the abuse really comes down hard on her, or the abandonment happens emotionally or physically from her. And so she learned early in life that you can't admit you're having emotions. You can't even show your emotions. You can't show your true emotions, because if you do, very, very bad things are going to happen to you. People are going to hurt you. People are going to reject you, something along those lines. And so instead of just being like, yeah, Ethan, you're right. I am upset. I'm upset. I don't think I'm upset as you think I am, but yeah, I'm upset. I'm upset at the way I'm being treated. I feel like our deal is bad. And I feel like I feel like you're using me. I feel like you're deceiving me. And I feel like I deserve more. Okay. And I'm upset. What is it about it that makes it hard for her to just say, yes, I'm upset? Is it that? Was it the threat that she feels? Is she being triggered in that way? Is it that, and this is also a feminism, sexism issue as well, where when women are, as I said earlier, labeled emotional, they will be discounted. So is she trying to avoid that? Like, no, I'm rational. I'm not emotional, because we sometimes will have that bifurcation of you're either emotional or you're rational and reasonable. If you're emotional, then you're out of control and you're not thinking right. Instead of recognizing that when we have upsetness, when we're angry, when we're hurt, we have very good reasons to be that way. And it's okay to have emotion that is affecting the way we're delivering. Hey, you're upsetting me right now. And yes, I'm emotional because I have rational emotions that are detecting something going on right here. Is it something like that? Is it the way that Ethan is delivering it? Because he isn't doing it in a super caring way. He could say, Trisha, I'm on your side. I'm totally on your side. And if you want to talk about the deal that we have, we could talk about it. I don't know if this is the venue to talk about it, but we can go over the numbers. And I'd be more than happy. You're a valued, we're 50-50 here for the most part in terms of content. We can figure out the money situation. But I just would really love it if you could admit that you're upset, because it feels like you're upset at me, which is okay. It's okay to be upset at me. I don't think you're off the charts upset at me, but I think, you're a 2 or a 3. You're upset at me. And I guess I'd just like some confirmation that you're upset, because it feels like you're upset at me, which concerns me. It worries me. I don't want you to be upset at me. I wonder if he worded something like that, she could get on board with that, but that's not what he's doing. What he's being is like, you're upset. You're gaslighting me, and he would kind of roll his eyes and have this kind of knowing look with people around him to humiliate her. So I think that's another factor that could be affecting her to say, no, I'm not upset.
Holy cow, that's crazy. I mean, I don't know how I just don't see what you just did. That's really.
What
crazy.
did I do?
We have to end it now. Like, really.
What did I do?
Okay, so something triggered her. Let's rewatch that. So, I think things were escalating for the two of them. I think particularly for Trisha. I think something's getting triggered in her. If any of us were interacting with Ethan about something conflictual, we would probably feel hurt and angry and frustrated with his tone and his demeanor. I don't know that for sure. But so I think things were escalating in a normal sense for Trisha. And then he did something right there, and that really triggered her. And I think her distress is actually gone from like a 5 to a 9. And I think she's panicking in this moment, and she's like, "We need to stop." So let's rewind that and see what happened.
I'm just because you can be upset and still show up.
But I'm not
That's
upset, and that's
Okay,
what gaslighting
all right.
is. Because you're saying I'm gaslighting you by saying,
you. You're not upset. You're perfectly.
Oh,
You're in
wow.
a perfect condition right now.
okay, wow.
Right. So what Ethan is doing is this sarcastic contempt. Yes, yes. All right, fine. I'm gaslighting you. You're always right. Okay. So sarcasm is an expression of contempt, and I recommend everyone, if you're in a fight, refrain from rolling your eyes, refrain from being sarcastic, refrain from calling someone names, refrain from ad hominem attacks. You can speak from your heart. So if Ethan were to speak from his heart, instead of being sarcastic, he'd be like, okay, I feel like I don't know what you're doing right now. It seems like you're upset. I can't know you were upset, but I feel frustrated and frankly a little hurt that we can't bond in this way. I feel like I'm distanced from you a little bit. I feel like you're pushing me away because you can't admit that you're a little bit upset. It just seems strange to me. That's fine for you, and you can have that, but it's upsetting me because I want to be on the same page with you because I like you. But that's not what he did. It was like, okay, fine, I'm gaslighting you. You're not upset. And that contempt is hurtful. But I'm guessing, she talked earlier about how she suffers from borderline personality disorder. And I don't know, because I don't know Trisha, but if you have borderline legitimately, then typically you have a lot of abuse, a lot of abandonment growing up. And any hint of abandonment or contempt or rejection from people that you're close to will trigger those past traumas. It'll hurt because it should hurt. It should hurt. When someone's contemptuous and rolls their eyes and is sarcastic with you, it should hurt. How much should it hurt, though? Let's say on a scale from 1 to 10, like a 4. But if you have all these traumas from the past, it triggers all those traumas, and then you peg at 10 and you panic. It's a physical panic feeling. And for those of you who suffer from personality disorders, you can attest to this. It's not just an intellectual like, I'm being triggered right now. I don't like this. It is an all body experience. And I wonder if that's what's happening with her right now.
Holy cow, that's crazy. I mean, I don't know how I just don't see what you just did. That's really
What did I do?
We have to end it now. Like, really.
What did I do?
We got to stop for real.
So I'm going to take a guess and say that, she's very distressed and she wants to cry and she wants to scream, but she doesn't want to show that. She doesn't want to show that vulnerability because that makes her even more vulnerable to being hurt, according to her perception in the moment, which is possible. And so she has this mode that she goes into. She's like, okay, let's end this right now. I think that's her like, oh God, I need to get out of here. So I really think that's what's happening. And I feel bad for her. I feel like Ethan cares on some level, but I don't think he understands what's happening for Trisha right now.
Really?
Okay.
Stop. Please? Okay.
Whenever you're ready, you can walk away.
So.
Okay, so good. Ethan could do a little bit more of just like, I'm sorry. Whatever I said, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. But, it's definitely in the right direction. He's like, okay. It sounds like, I think he's detecting, because you can kind of hear her breathing. It seems real shallow breathing, because I think she's panicking, and I think he detects that. He's like, okay, so that's good. I hope they have a follow-up conversation about this.
No, because I don't want to title this.
It's the pizza curse.
But can we just edit
I'm not going to title it Trisha's thing. It's the pizza curse. It is.
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't have got pizza.
So I think Ethan is trying to salvage it. I think he's trying to make a joke, trying to help them make up by making a joke. I think he could do better. Sometimes making a joke can help, but and at least he's not attacking her anymore and being sarcastic. So I think again, if we're going to use this show as a jumping off point, it's like, hey, Trisha, I don't know what happened for you right there, but I feel like I really hurt you. I feel like I really bothered you, and I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. Okay, so that role play I just did, if you don't do that once a week, you're doing something wrong, because you are probably bothering people all the time. I bother people all the time. And when I'm at my best, which is, I don't know, 20% of the time, I will say something like that. I'll be like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean that. It came out wrong. I'm seeing a reaction in you right now that I must have hurt your feelings or bothered you. Sorry, I don't know what wrong there. Just say it. Just be like, I'm sorry. Why don't we say that? Well, it's because we're too ashamed to admit that we've done something wrong because we have a lot of traumas relationally.
Pizza? Oh no, it was pizza. Trisha, let me just say,
The
I'm
fact,
sorry.
Ethan, that you just did that, you're right. You're
I don't know
right.
what I just
Nothing's wrong
said.
with you. But you don't know how much therapy I go to a week. I go to 4
But
Zoom
Trisha,
sessions a
you
week.
can't-
No,
I understand,
Ethan,
but okay,
what you
all right.
just said was, you're right, Trisha. Everything's fine. That's insane. Like, the fact that you did that to me is like
It's
insane.
not insane. We're friends.
was
We're
so
having
nice.
a friendly conversation. I don't have to.
So Ethan started to apologize, which was great. I don't know how well that would have gone, but he started. But for Trisha, she's still, I think, in that space, that high distress. I think all she can hear right now is that contemptuous sarcasm, which really, really hurt her, and I think triggered past issues. Again, should she have been upset about him being sarcastic? Yes. But I'm guessing that she's a 10 right now on the distress scale because of what she was talking about regarding her borderline.
shouldn't have to walk on eggshells around everything I
Okay.
say.
All right, Ethan,
We
I'm
have
asking to end this. I'm asking
You can
please.
leave anytime, Trisha.
But then you're making this thing where we're not ending the show, and you get to sit here and be like, okay, well that just happened, and you're eating pizza, and then
I
some
will
joke
end
and
the
whatever.
show the minute you walk
All right,
off the
so
frame.
let's just end it, please. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, so I don't know, but I've worked with a lot of people when they are having a distress moment, and I think she is, definitely an 8, 9, or 10 out of 10 on the distress scale. You can hear it in her voice. It's typical to have a fight, flight, freeze, fight, flight, freeze, appease, or faint response. She is having the flee response right now because of her high distress and the threat that she's feeling, and she just wants to leave. She just wants to get out, but she's also like, well, if I leave, it'll make me look bad, and I don't want that'll make it even worse. So can we just end the podcast right now? Can we just end the show?
For watching, and I don't want it to be a thing where you're just sitting here eating pizza and you become a meme.
So then I'll say, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Obviously, I don't want to get in an argument over
really
like
need
your
to
most.
leave.
Okay, all right, we're done. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
So he apologized, kind of. He seemed sincere, but you want to be a little bit more elaborate. I'm sorry for being sarcastic. It makes sense that you'd be hurt by that. And I think her ability to clamp down on her pain is, waning. And so the pain is starting to come out. She wants to escape. And I think it's going to take a while for her to recover, even to be able to hear an apology.
I'm just going to start from the top. Like, first of all, I'm going to say about Trish, like the whole breakup is that, like, Trish has been saying a lot of things publicly, which has put me in a tough spot.
All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.